I'm Radcliffe. I'm a senior security analyst for InGuardians. I'm going to be talking today about medical devices, specifically medical devices dealing with diabetes, insulin pumps, glucose meters, things of that nature. Just a little thing before that, when I walked in, I noticed that they put me right next to the memorial for Barnaby. And Barnaby and I worked in the same place, doing the same kind of things. The phrase I use is we played on the same playground. He was a very brilliant technical person, and we really didn't agree on a whole lot of things. And that I thought was a good thing. Brought a lot of perspective. We had many arguments over how we should go about fixing medical devices. And he's somebody that the community is going to sorely miss. And it makes me sad to see that he's gone now. So let's talk a little bit about why I'm up here and how I got to be up here. This is me at 5, taking apart whatever I could find. And that's pretty much how I got started doing a lot of these things. I've always been the kind of person that takes things apart, breaks them, and usually doesn't put it back together. I've got 23 years of computer security experience and administration at IBM and previously ISS, and now currently working with InGuardians, doing a lot of security, pen testing, hands-on stuff. I've also been an FCC amateur radio operator since 1992. And that gives me a lot of perspective and a lot of hands-on experience with hardware, RF, wireless things, all that good stuff. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice pre-law, so that gets me in front of lawyers a lot, which is awfully boring. And I have my master's degree from SANS in InfoSec engineering. As far as diabetes and a patient is concerned, I've been a type 1 diabetic since my 22nd birthday. I've been an insulin pump user for over 12 years. Gives me a lot of experience to know exactly how these devices interact with the human body. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot. You guys probably don't get a lot of experience hands-on with these devices, seeing what they do, how do they connect to the body, how do they interact with a human being. And that's going to be a huge part of what this talk is about. I've had the pleasure of wearing over 7 medical devices in my diabetic career. So because I'm a geek, I collect these devices, I use them, I experiment with them, and we do all sorts of neat stuff. And some not neat stuff, as you're going to see. Also, 2 years ago, I gave this small talk at Black Hat in 2011 on breaking the human SCADA system for fun and insulin, where I showed that the Medtronic insulin pump has pretty much no authentication, and I was able to suspend insulin delivery with that pump with my computer and a remote dongle, which was kind of interesting and got a little bit of attention.
You said dongle.
Dongle. So what are we going to talk about today? What are you going to see today? I have a lot of devices. Don is unpacking them right now. I brought over 30 medical devices, most of them diabetic related. I'm going to talk for about a half hour, and then you guys can come up. We can poke at these devices, look at them, you can ask questions. I'll actually test my blood sugar if you want, poke myself with needles, do all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely, lots of needles, blood everywhere. How are these devices, we're going to talk about how these devices impact a patient, right? A lot of the times these technical talks go into what we can do with these technically, but we're going to give you a little bit of understanding of why I have these things attached to my body and what happens when things go wrong. I'm going to talk a little bit about how vendors are reacting to these issues, as far as when I tell them there's something wrong with them, how receptive they are to those things. I'm also going to show some funny videos and pictures, so it'll be fun. A little bit of facts about diabetes, right? There are over 3 million type 1 diabetics in the United States alone, and there are over 80 people diagnosed every day with type 1 diabetes. Total, $15 billion with a B, dollars was spent on healthcare costs for type 1 diabetics. So there is a ton of money being spent, a lot of it on devices. It's not the medication as much as the hardware and the devices and the things that attach to those devices that generate a lot of cost as a patient. There are over 500,000 insulin pumps in use worldwide, and some of them are as old as 15 to 20 years. So you have a lot of devices out in the field there that could contain a lot of vulnerabilities that we've already published on and vulnerabilities we don't know about. So this is really important, okay? there are two types of diabetics. And for a diabetic, if you tell them they're one and you're wrong, it's kind of offensive. So a type 1 diabetic produces no insulin whatsoever. Our pancreas is dead, as far as that's concerned, right? This used to be called juvenile diabetes because it only happened to kids. It's not just happening to kids now. I was diagnosed at 22. I've met people that were diagnosed in their 40s and 50s. There's a test that they do that see if you're producing any insulin at all. It's actually a very easy, very quick test. A type 2 diabetic is really a big growth area as far as health costs are concerned. These are people that still produce insulin, but they have problems. Usually insulin resistance and insulin production. So you're not producing enough insulin, or your insulin is malfunctioning in some way, or you've just blown your pancreas out and it's just tight, right? So with the amount of obesity that we have, for a variety of other reasons, this has a huge spike. And a lot of type 2 diabetics also use these devices as well. So the devices we'll talk about today are used across all diabetic spheres. What is diabetes? Why do I talk about it so much? Well, to understand what the implications of these medical devices are, you have to understand a little bit about this disease, right? And it basically boils down to a human SCADA system. The liver produces fuel in the form of sugar, and you also eat sugars, carbohydrates. So we have all this sugar coming in, and to generate energy out of it, to convert it to energy, you need a special chemical called insulin. This insulin is produced by the pancreas, and it allows the body to use these sugars. Now, in non-diabetics, and even in diabetics, your blood sugar should be between 80 and 120. You might get to 140 for you non-diabetics. You go crazy at Max Brenner's chocolate place, right? But you're really going to kind of stay in that low 100 range. Diabetics are way outside that range. What happens when a diabetic has really high blood sugar? It is called hyperglycemia, which is too much sugar and not enough insulin. So let's say, for example, I eat a Snickers bar, which is about 32 grams of carbohydrates, and I just do give myself no insulin. My sugar is going to rise about 200 points in about 45 minutes. And that varies from diabetic to diabetic, but that's pretty much what's going to happen to me. So if I'm perfect at 100, and I eat a Snickers bar, and I get distracted and give myself no insulin, an hour later, I'm going to be well over 250. Now in the short term, what does that do? I'm going to have a lot of thirst, an unquenchable thirst. Like, I can't even describe to you how thirsty you get. Like, I can drink a gallon of water, and then I'm ready for another gallon of water, right? The reason that is the sugar is processed through the kidneys. You have excess sugar, your body goes, I need liquids to get it through the kidneys. It affects the way chemistry works in your body. You start to get blurred vision, you get headaches, you have energy problems. Because your body can't use any of that sugar, it's going to switch to burning fat, which is it produces ketones, it produces all kinds of different things. It's a different form of burning energy. Long term, we're talking kidney damage because you work the kidneys, at well over 150%. You have neuropathy. You start to lose finger and toe sensation. A lot of out-of-control diabetics will start to get things amputated. Their feet, their legs, their hands. And you also get circulatory problems. All the parts of your body need sugar to run. So when it doesn't have sugar, you get more capillaries and more capillaries and more capillaries, and that causes a lot more problems with the entire circulatory part of your body. While that sucks, this sucks more, which is low blood sugar, called hypoglycemia. A lot of times diabetics will just refer to it as hypoing. Let's say I eat a Snickers bar and I give myself twice the amount of insulin I need. Or I just give myself insulin for a Snickers bar that I never get to eat. And I start at 100. My sugars will just drop and drop and drop and drop. And what happens is as my sugar drops below 70, my body says, okay, we're going to start shutting things down. And it will start with my fingers. I'll start to shake. I'll start to sweat. I will start to, everything will center down to, let's just keep the heart and the brain running. It is no different than hypothermia, where you start to lose control of your mind a little bit, you lose coordination, you have impaired mental judgment. You'll have a primal urge to eat. The only thing you will think about is food. I need to eat, I need to eat right now, I need to eat, and I'm not going to stop eating until I feel better. This is very similar to being drunk, and people often get mistaken for being drunk when they are very low blood sugar. When you have hypoglycemia and it's untreated, it can lead to death. Your heart and your brain run on sugar. If you don't have any, you die. There was a 10-year study that showed that somewhere between 5 to 10% of all type 1 diabetics will die from hypoglycemia or hypoglycemia-related issues. This shocked me when I researched this and found this out. That is a very, very scary thing. So my sugar could go low and I could crash my car. My sugar could go low and nobody could be there to help me. I could go into a coma, and if I way overshoot, well, that's it. Now, diabetics often get mistaken for being drunk when they're low. Brain starts shutting down. It's a very scary thing. You act really weird. The guy on the screen here, his name is Alan. He runs the diabetic camp that I volunteer at, and he is an ER physician with type 1 diabetes. And he is rather legendary for his hypos. This video is of him hypoing. This guy is, for religious reasons, doesn't drink, so I assure you that this is not him going on a bender. But I'm going to show you about 45 seconds of video here about what it looks like for a diabetic to hypo.
Right. This is the doctor.
That's a gel pack that you use to increase your sugar. It's horrible tasting.
You use time. Oh my God. Oh my God. Eat some more check, Oh, I never like the stuff. I like this.
It's kind of hard to hear, but he doesn't have pants on. He doesn't have pants on, and he's very concerned about this. So it's kind of hard to hear, but he gets really crazy. He looks like he has no idea what's going on, and he really doesn't. A lot of people, when they hypo really bad like this, when they get under 50, they have no memory of it. They can't remember what happened. They can't remember how they got out of it. So obviously, it's a pretty scary thing. Let's talk about the technology a little bit. So let's talk about glucose meters. This is probably something that everybody's seen. Grandma has one, or somebody you know has one. This is a small electronic system that uses disposable finger sticks to measure blood glucose levels. What you end up doing is you poke your finger and you get a drop of blood, you put it on the stick, and it tells you what your blood sugar is. This has a wild tolerance for accuracy. It's about plus or minus 20%, which most diabetics are pretty pissed off about. But I think it's just a limitation of the chemistry in the finger sticks. Now, where the money comes from here is that the finger sticks are about 50 cents to $1 a piece. So if I have to test my sugar 5 or 6 times a day, that's $5 or $6 worth of test strips a day. So that gets really expensive really quick. Matter of fact, they give the meters away for free because there's no money in that. But the strips, there's money in that. Now what we're starting to see now is RF in the pumps. We're seeing Bluetooth in the pumps. The one here on the far right actually hooks up to your iPhone. So you can take your blood sugar and store it in your iPhone. I have probably 15 different glucose meters here for you guys to look at, poke at, test at. I even brought strips, so if you're really curious, you can test your own blood sugar and things like that. The next generation of that are called continuous glucose meters. What this is a very fine wire that goes under the skin and measures the electrical value of your subcutaneous fluids. And based upon those electrical values that it measures, it can do some fancy math and tell you what your blood sugars are. in real time. So these things take a sample every 5 seconds, and you calibrate it a couple times a day, and it will give you your blood sugar results on a little pager-like device, where you can actually see what it is in real time. So instead of having 5 samples a day, or 2 samples a day, you can have thousands of samples a day. These sensors are approved to wear for 3 to 7 days on your body. Most diabetics usually wear them for 2 weeks. I typically get about 20 days out of the sensor. The longer you wear a sensor, the more accurate it is. It just has to do with the calibration and the way the wire gets integrated into your fluid system and some hoo-ha and whatnot. This is a key component to the artificial pancreas project, which is how to combine and make kind of a closed, self-autonomous system that'll correct your own blood sugar. This is a huge component of it. And I've got 2 samples for you guys to look at up here about how it attaches to you. And then I have one attached to my body right now that you're more than welcome to look at. And I brought one that I can probably insert into myself. So if you want to see that process, we can do that as well. All of these devices have wireless in them now, right? Especially the glucose meter, these ones with wireless glucose sensors. And they're all over the place technology-wise. They have 900 megahertz ones, 400 megahertz ones, 2.4 gigahertz ones, and usually they're proprietary communication methods. So it's not using a standard protocol, it's some stuff that they roll themselves. I haven't seen one that's been encrypted yet. It transmits in the clear. It usually transmits something that's transmit ID and then the electrical values itself. The next generations of these products are going to be using Bluetooth, LE, and ANT. They're standardizing these because they want to piggyback on cell phones. So that way they can do stuff with the data. Isn't that a wonderful idea? Let's use our cell phones for everything. They also are creating docks, so you can plug the receiver into a dock and then they can transfer all this data to the cloud. Because who doesn't want their private, personal medical data in the cloud? That's such a wonderful thing. I feel so much safer having everything in the cloud. Now, the big device for most diabetics is the insulin pump. Rather than give yourself multiple daily injections, you can connect up to an insulin pump, and it delivers the insulin on a per-minute basis for you. It does this through an infusion set that attaches to your body with a small plastic tube. The FDA approves these for about 3 days. So I wear this thing, it's got a little 9mm plastic tube, connects to my body, and that's how the medicine gets into my system. 2 important insulins here. It's the same insulin, but one's referred to as basal insulin, and this is measured by the hour. So I'll get X amount of insulin over the course of an hour. A bolus injection is done with the amount of insulin per carbohydrate. So when I eat 50 grams of carbohydrates, I give myself X amount of insulin. These are kind of 2 examples of how that works. The guy on the far right here is the first insulin pump. It was the size of a backpack. It was huge. It ran on huge batteries. Nowadays, they're really tiny. They're about this big. They run on AA batteries, which you'll see is an interesting little challenge when it comes to changing them and what can happen when you change the battery. This is the guts of the pump that I have, the Animus Ping. It uses an MSP 430. It uses a very standardized Atmel serial flash. So these boards are easily accessible once you take apart the device. And you can poke around and look at these kind of things and kind of do hardware hackerish stuff. The holy grail of all diabetic technology is closing the loop. That's when you have the CGM feed the insulin pump data, and then the insulin pump will think for you. You don't have to think anymore. And it'll react to what your blood sugar does. So your blood sugar goes up, it'll give you more insulin. Your blood sugar goes down, it'll give you less insulin, just like your pancreas will. There's lots of potential problems here. One is, well, we don't use encryption with the CGMs. So it'd be pretty easy to spoof sensor data, right? No real-time clocks, so you're not going to prevent any random replay attack. No authentication whatsoever, and there's no encryption. So pretty much hacker paradise, right? We can do anything we want with the sensor data, and we can make a closed-loop insulin pump do whatever we want. We can also jam the sensor data. These tiny little things run on watch batteries for a year at a time. So it's nanowatts of transmitting power. So if you show up with 500 milliwatt transmitter, you can jam all the sensors and nobody gets any data, and then everybody has no sensor data to go on. Now, reporting problems that device vendors have is a big issue, right? 2 years ago, when I talked to Medtronic, they were not entirely open or ready for that conversation yet. And the FDA recently, since that time, has gotten a lot better and a lot more involved in this, kind of getting that ball rolling. They came out last month and said, cybersecurity is going to be a criteria for rejection for medical device approval. Like before that, they would look at the cyber stuff, but they had no ability to reject a device on that. So if they found glaring security holes on it, it couldn't be a reason to reject the device. They have changed that, and now it is part of the criteria. So medical device vendors, hopefully, will start reacting to that and being ready to have that conversation. Well, let's talk about that conversation. Let's see how this works in the real world. So I had an adverse experience with my ambulance pain. I had a severe hypoglycemic event in March. I had sub 50 sugars about 1 a.m., woke me up in a cold sweat. I was like, wow, really, really low, like scary low, like I'm gonna pass out any minute now, and if I do, that's bad, right? Didn't have to go to the hospital, was able to correct it at home alone, or at home but with, you know, standard eating procedures and whatnot. But the next day I was like, man, something just doesn't sit right with me. Like, I don't do that at 1 a.m. to that severity level. What happened? So I go back, I had to do a root cause analysis. And I pulled my history and did the math on paper, and I over-bolused by 8 units. Whoa, how the hell did I over-bolus by 8 units? Well, I did a battery change before I went to bed, and then I bolused after that because my sugar was high, and that's when I wonder if it had anything to do with changing the battery. Now I have a demo, but I don't have a video camera, so it's going to be really kind of hard to show this, okay? So I might do it after the talk's over and show you guys exactly what happens, but I have a slide on the next one here that shows exactly what I'm talking about. So please, if you're a diabetic or you know a diabetic, don't play around with this. It's very, very dangerous. I'm a professional diabetic. I consult with experts. I do this, hopefully not a lot, but I do. So this is what happened. Before the battery change, there's a statistic called insulin on board. Insulin on board is how much insulin is in my body. And the insulin pump keeps track of that. Insulin lasts for about 4 hours. So it degrades over time. When I changed my battery, the insulin pump threw that information away. It decided it was irrelevant. So, what my calculation was here, I was supposed to get 5 units. After the battery change, if you look at it, because it doesn't keep track of that, it gave me 11 in this example. Now, this is really scary because I depend upon this device to calculate the correct amount of medicine to give me. To give you an idea how significant this is, a 6-unit overbolus for me is the difference between being perfect at 100 and being at -50, which is dead. Now typically, I'll wake up and about 60, I'll start to feel it and I can correct it, but let's say I don't. I'm probably gonna die in this situation because of too much insulin. Now I went and grabbed the other insulin pumps I had to see if this was just a standard feature and everybody did that when they got rid of it, when they changed their battery. And this is the only pump on the market that does this, which is really surprising to me. The battery change takes all of 3 seconds. You unscrew this thing, pull the battery out, put the new battery in, put it in. So I went to the FDA and I said, hey, I don't know if this is a cybersecurity issue, but it's a computer problem for sure. What do you guys want me to do with it? And the FDA said, well, it's computer-based and it's medically very dangerous. So I want you to submit it through the EMDR, the Electronic Medical Device Reporting System. So this EMDR is functional, but it's not really designed for security things. It's designed for people that have issues, but you know, trying to submit a computer bug or a design flaw to it is not what it was intended for. They also wanted me to fax it or mail it to them manually, which was rather annoying. Because it's the FDA and government, they were like, this is embarrassing, but could you fax it to us? I'm like, no. So we ended up getting it to them. Now what happens after that point, the FDA vets the submission to make sure that I'm not just some goofball doesn't know how to use my phone. Then the vendor gets notified and they have 45 days to contact me. So I had this very nice Animas nurse call me to make sure I was okay at Sunday at 9 a.m. And she was like, so I heard that you hypoed and there was this, you did a battery change and you know, we're really sorry about that, we hope you're okay. And I'm like, that's great, but what are you gonna do about it? And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, you need to pay attention when you change your battery. I said, yeah, but that's not a solution. Like, what if you have a 9-year-old? What if you have an autistic kid? What if you have a low functioning? What if you have your mom on it who's scared to death of technology? Well, it's safer this way. I said, well, safer how? She goes, it's just safer. Okay, I would like to escalate this. So she escalated it. Initially, they were really great. Their PR person called me, they set up a call with their R&D and their medical officer. I was like, wow, this is impressive, they're gonna take this seriously. Yeah, not so much. First off, the medical officer said, we would like you to stop referring to this as a bug, and we would like you to stop referring to it as a design flaw, because it's not. Okay, so stop calling it that. Okay, thanks. Then they were like, you should have read the manual. It's in the manual. I said, yeah, it is in the manual. You have 2 sentences, one on page 72 and one on page 172 of your 400-page book. And they were like, well, you didn't read it. It's your fault. Like, okay, well, you know, I tend to know a computer or two. You know, I don't think that I'm, you know, your average everyday user. If this fooled me and this got past me, I'm thinking that most of your patients are not going to remember this. And they were like, yeah, well, we'll keep that in mind. We have no intention of fixing it. And I was like, what? I just showed you twice and reported to the FDA that you almost killed me with this bug. And you're just not going to fix it? And they're like, yeah. But we take your input seriously, like all of our customers' concerns. And maybe in the next generation of product, we'll do something about that. And they aggressively pushed that this was the safest design. Their endocrinologist on the phone is like, this is absolutely the safest thing to do. I mean, what if in that 5 seconds you gave yourself a whole bunch of insulin? I was like, what? Are you a diabetic? Do you have any idea how this product is used? Like, I've been a diabetic for 14 years, been on insulin pumps for 13 years. I can count on one hand after a major blender accident how many times I've given an injection manually. And he's like, well, we have to design it for those criteria. I said, what about the criteria that I just showed you? He goes, well, yeah. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Radcliffe? Fine. And then they're like, anyways, if we wanted to fix it, we couldn't. We have to report to regulators. It'll take us years to get this past them. Which is a total lie. All right? You can patch medical devices without going to the FDA at all. They have absolutely no jurisdiction over that. Matter of fact, Abbott just came out with a patch for a glucose meter that they pushed out over the internet within less than a month of getting reports that it had a problem. And it was a itty-bitty tiny problem that I didn't even consider worth patching really. But they felt that they needed to patch it, and they did that by notifying all their users, go to this website, plug in the USB port, boop, flash a new firmware, done. So the FDA is not an excuse for that. Now, I've got lots of diabetic stuff up here. Some of it's already taken apart. I want you guys to come up and look at it. You can ask me questions. I've got insulin pumps, CGMs. I can take off my shirt. I can show you how it attaches to me, right? I'll show you how they connect to the human body. We'll have little questions, all that stuff. First thing I think you guys should do is thank all the volunteers at BSides. They do an absolutely wonderful job of putting this event on. It's been nothing but a pleasurable experience, so make sure that you thank them and thank the people that run this. This is my contact information. If you're too shy to come up and ask me questions here or all week, feel free to shoot me an email or hit me up on Twitter or send me a telegram or however people communicate these days. Pigeons? Back to me? Might be tough. We'll figure it out though. So thank you very much. I appreciate you coming. We've got, how much time we got left? How much time is?
Just so in the audience, you've got 25 minutes.
Oh, the patching process for the animus pump?
I think that's pretty key.
I'm 90% certain that they have hard-coded the firmware.
And there's no USB port. There's only an RF.
It's got an infrared port, so I think theoretically you could patch it through that, but I'm 95% certain that they have absolutely no ability to patch the device. So it'd be a full device recall, which would be, I think that might be expensive. So I don't think they're going to do that, but I'm kind of going to war with them a little bit here in a couple hours. They were supposed to send their PR person to do a press conference with me at Black Hat in 2 hours. Conveniently on Friday, they had a travel conflict, and they will not be attending Black Hat this year. So, so we'll just have to run it alone. Any other questions? Yes?
Have you played with fuzzing over the Bluetooth or other RF connections?
I have done some fuzzing over that. Pretty much, though, when it's an open protocol, that's pretty easy to reverse. You can do so much more dangerous stuff when they're not doing any encrypting or anything like that, that, you know, it's pretty damaging. You know, you get into fuzzing when you do that weird stuff, but I mean, you just tell it to turn off. Yeah. Yeah.
So vendors haven't been responsive, and the FDA hasn't been responsive. How do you see us getting better at getting more action and more?
So the question is, how do I see us getting better? You know, that's tough. The sad thing is, I think that the fastest way to get to that process would be for somebody to die of something like this. Because the FDA can't do anything about it until that happens. And then the legal liability doesn't happen until that happens. And that's really what drives the world. You know, these devices are so hard to get a hold of. The only reason that I hack diabetic devices so much is that I have access to them. Insulin pumps are $6,000. You need a prescription to even get one. So, you know, the hardware hacking community can't go to Target and buy 5 of them and just blow them up and tell you how bad they are. You know, there's only a handful of us doing that type of thing, and one of them is gone now. So, I don't know. I really don't. You know, I'm hoping that we can get together as a community and push this issue harder. You know, and I'm hoping to do that, and I'm reaching out to people to do that type of thing. But it's something that we're going to have to do as a community. I can't, you know, not a single individual can do that type of thing. You know, we have to push as a community to show these are dangerous things. You can't just blow them off. You have to listen to us. And you know, that's really what I'm about. That's what I'm trying to push. That's why I'm showing you guys as much as I can. You, the rat in the back.
Hey, Jay. How easy would it be to tell when somebody died because of a malfunction or a problem with the device?
Great question. You can.
And
So,
are there things that people can do, or maybe we should start figuring out how to do some kind of?
yeah. So one of the problems is that when you die, your body chemistry changes significantly. One of the things that they noted in that 10-year study was, and they put it somewhere between 5 and 20% actually of deaths because of hypoglycemia. You can't test blood sugar after death. Blood goes all wonky, and chemistry-wise, you can't do it. So for those of you looking for a stealthy mechanism, low blood sugar is a pretty good way because you just can't test it. So it's really, really hard to do, like, was it the insulin pump? Did he overdose? You can guess, you can speculate on it based upon some circumstantial things, but you can't nail it down for sure.
You're basically wearing a weapon.
I'm wearing a weapon, sure. Yes?
Do any of the Animus people that you've been talking to actually use their own product?
I have no idea. None of the people that were on that call, the head of R&D, the endocrinologist, the PR person, none of them are type 1s.
So my suggestion is if you can actually get a sit down with anyone that works for their company that uses their product, take a laptop into the meeting, outline all the security problems, and say, I'm going to hit this button. You want to gamble?
Yeah, maybe. That's a strategy to do it.
That's only ethical if it's the lawyer who happens to have it for the company.
That's possible, yeah. Lawyers aren't people, so.
Correct.
Yes?
So I know
So like rhesus monkeys that swing more shit.
Yep. I would love to get my hands on some infusion pumps. When I ask medical device vendors for that, they don't give them to me. I don't understand. I tell them I'm only going to use them for good. They laugh.
Are any of them showing up on eBay yet?
I look on eBay. There's some, so like other ways to get devices, make friends with your local coroner's office. They have to pull those devices out of bodies before they bury them or cremate them. So if you make your very Frankenstein, right? And it's it's creepy. But you know, some of those things you have to do to get some of those things. So I have some pacemakers up here that I bought on eBay for $10 a piece. They're demos. They have dead batteries in them, but their guts are all in there. So I got those. These devices are also illegal to purchase on eBay because you need a license or a prescription to buy them. So when they show up on eBay, they're there for very short periods of time before they get pulled. So that you have to go and be like a black market, gray market medical device dealer, essentially, to get into that field of hardware hacking. So you kind of have to cover up your sources to find out, you know, how you got your hands on these devices and how you got your, you know, how you get your research subjects. Yes.
Is it going to get better as the FDA gets involved with having access to these devices that seem to be required for more open, get rid of all restrictions?
Sure.
Yourself?
The FDA has actually bought a fuzzing product from Codamicon to do some more fuzz testing. That kind of goes along with their cybersecurity initiative. So we'll see if they get better, but you got to remember, these things are so long term. Like, what they're engineering now is going to come out for 3 or 4 or 5 years. So to actually accurately evaluate their security, I'm going to have to wait for 4 or 5 years to see what those products are like before I can say if this even works at all. Unless, of course, they patch, which most medical device vendors can't. Not you, but the one behind you. Yeah.
What was the question?
Yeah, well, can you repeat that again? Yeah, the insurance companies don't care. They're making lots and lots and lots and lots of money on this. Well, they buy the device, and they broker through the device, and the amount of co-pays that they're paying, like to show them that they're losing money on this because it's such a small population, they're like, it's infinitesimal. We are swimming in our pools of money. You're telling me that you're essentially telling me I lost a couple $100. Yeah, it's possible. You know, to try and get them to do that, I haven't had any success approaching them. You, sir, you had a question.
This is kind of a two-parter, I guess. First off, one, so following up on the insurance question there, do consumers have a choice in the set of products, or it's pretty much what the insurance company says, hey, you're getting one?
Yeah, most insurance companies lock you into something. They have a contracted agreement with a medical device vendor. So, like for example, you could pick. There's like 7 good insulin pumps on the market, but they might have already made a deal with Medtronic or Animas or Omnipod to say this is the one that you're going to get, unless you want to pay for it yourself. So if you've got $6 grand, go ahead. But for example, my insurance company prefers me to use freestyle meters. So I had to fight pretty hard to get them to cover any other type of meter. So yes, they don't have a lot of choices. If you have an awesome insurance company, they'll let you pick whatever you want, but really, who has an awesome insurance company? There was yes.
So you mentioned that they pushed back with you saying that, you know, they might not be able to patch the system.
Oh, they never said that. They just said that the FDA it would take years because of regulators.
So one of the things to really push these vendors to incorporate new changes, rather than us voicing as a community to the vendors directly saying, hey, you guys should do this, we should be voicing our concerns to the FDA and say, hey, you know, as a part of the approval process for these devices, you should probably also consider that these devices should be able to be upgraded during a certain period.
Yeah, I agree with you, but the FDA is pretty powerless in this area.
Really?
Yeah. So when they go through the device approval, they might get 4 days with this device from a software perspective to look at this. And previous to June, if they found anything, they couldn't reject it. So, like I've been to the FDA, I've talked to the executive director who's in charge of this part of testing. He's like, It's power, and as soon as the device is approved, they have no power. So if something's found post-approval, legally, from a legal perspective, they can't do anything. They can't pull the device, they can't make them patch it, they can recommend things to do, but they have absolutely no bite. Only in the approval process do they have bite. So if you're hoping for the FDA to come and save your devices, that cavalry's not coming. Yeah? Yes, sir, you.
So you mentioned earlier that the FDA is approved 3 days. Does that mean it's 3 days in and you have to pull it out and reposition?
Correct. Every 3 days you got to replace it.
How long you have to do that?
Oh no, you just move it around. So I've got nice love handles here, and I attach them and I rotate them through these love handles to give myself the insulin. The 3-day mark is where you start to see infection. So that's why we try and change them every 3 days, and then you rotate pretty heavily to allow that area of your body to heal as a human pain cushion to do those types of things. You, sir.
I understand how the FDA really doesn't have power because they're just interpreting the congressional law.
Correct.
So what members of Congress are called for?
There are two that ordered a GAO investigation after what I did in 2011. Senator Markey, or Representative Markey, now Senator Markey from Massachusetts. And there's a female senator from California in Silicon Valley that I can never remember her name. Eshu, maybe?
Senator?
Senator.
Debbie Boxer or Mike?
No. Maybe it's a representative now, because I don't remember her name. But they ordered the investigation. They're pretty tuned into that, being in the Silicon Valley, and it's bipartisan too. The guy in Massachusetts is a Republican.
There's your power to change the FDA.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but people in Congress can't get shit done.
Really?
Yeah, you think they're concerned about my insulin pump? They can't even figure out how they're going to spend their trillions of dollars, or figure out what the heck is going on with anything. So,
But in all seriousness, something simple like this can get stuck into another bill that's going to pass. It happens all the time.
oh yeah, it could. Again, my hopes for that are, yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like I said, I think if the community is loud enough, they might do something about it, but maybe. You all the way in the back. I'm skipping you from memory. You all the way in the back, sir.
Is there any potential that other countries, European regulators, etc., might be able to have some influence? They must have some outside of the US.
The European model is a horrible mess. Every country has its own approval process, so it's super expensive to go through that because you have to do it not just for the European Union, but you have to do it with every single country. And they fast track things so much faster. I don't even think they're looking at any of the software or computer issues. They're like, it delivers medicine, is the medicine safe? Does it do a good job? Cool, approved. And that process, even that process takes years. So no. You got a question?
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, so to follow up from the FDA essentially being useless and Congress likewise being useless, going free market up in this bitch, I assume the goal here as well is with this specific bug is to get a lot of press on this, so effectively you have people, consumers who have to deal with this product, being able to harness their rage, going to their insurance company saying, we don't want to use this, we've seen what can happen, negotiate a new deal.
My goal in this is not directed at consumers really, because I don't think that diabetics. You got to remember, even though there's a lot of us, they're in a lot of us, okay, and we're so busy trying to make sure we don't screw up our own insulin that we're pretty busy, and I don't think that the consumers have any power. Consumers have no power. They don't. I mean, if you think this is the antithesis of the free market here. Right? Somebody else is choosing the products for you. You get them. You have to live with them. That's it. And if you complain about it, too bad, because I've already done that, and it doesn't do anything. The regulators are where it's at. I think the people that purchase the devices are where it's at. So a hospital should be doing tests on their security devices. We could be doing a better job as a community at making those issues heard at the congressional level to get their attention. So that way they're in tune with what's going on. Because really, nobody's in tune with this.
Well, it's better just bringing visibility.
So yeah, it's definitely about getting visibility, but to what end? We're still working on that. Yes?
A lot of this influence chain Nick Prococo and I are going to talk about tomorrow at 11:30 here. We want to take good research like this and figure out how to use lobbying, think tanks, hearts and minds PR campaigns, legal journals, regulator influence.
Yeah, we need a hacking lobby group on the Hill. That's what we need.
Right. So if you like this half the conversation, come tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. He's right. There's a talk tomorrow at
11:30.
11:30. That'll be talking about how do we make change. We have this. We do this a lot. But what's the next step? How do we take this and make it move forward?
Insulin pumps is just a very small part of the medical device and medical equipment industry, right? So, I mean, these same regulations and everything apply to all those medical devices.
Yep. Yeah. Every piece of medical equipment in a hospital is under those same regulations.
Previous to the new cyber policies and stuff that they have, they didn't have. I've worked in a lot of hospitals with a lot of medical equipment.
Yep.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there are infusion pumps that only use web or use no encryption at all, and wirelessly get their signals to tell you how much morphine you give to patients. They won't give me one of those either. I don't understand it. They won't give me the morphine either. Crazy.
That's where I see the FDA should help you out. This is what it's like, give the device, give somebody the device.
Yeah, the vendors have control over that. They give a device to the FDA, and then they can test it, but then they get it back. So they don't have like there's no Library of Congress for medical devices for me to go and swipe them from. Yes, sir. Well, we'll take one more question, and then you guys can come look at this stuff and poke at it. I can barely hear you, sir.
A lot of the change needs to come from the physicians. Okay, when I brought the encryption up, issues up with my endo, I've never heard of it before. It looks like there's enough to use it because of security.
Yeah, the endocrinologist, it depends on which one. So when I moved to Idaho and I got a new endocrinologist, told him what I did for a living, kind of said something. He's like, hey, you probably saw this article like a couple summers ago, where this guy found a big problem in Medtronic bug. You know anything about that? I said, yeah, that's me. He's like, no, it's not. I said, yeah, it's me. He goes, really? I said, yeah. He goes, you gonna break any more? I said, yeah. He goes, good. He goes, if there's anything I can do to help you, I will. So there are some endocrinologists that are online with that. There are some endocrinologists like, I wanted to hook it to my phone.
Should we have a month of Medtronic class?
A what?
A month of Medtronic class.
Actually, Medtronic's done great things in the past 2 years, but it took me having to pull their pants off in public. But they have gotten a new C-level executive that takes security, and that's all about security and privacy. All their devices have changed. I actually spent a lot of time talking with them, and they get it now. But it took a lot to get them to understand that. And now, I'm right back at square one. New vendor, we're perfect. We don't have to patch anything. It just reminds me of all the stuff that we did with Microsoft, where they're like, no, we're gonna sue you. You can't talk about it. And they've turned around, and now they are very responsible. And nobody learns from history, apparently. So, thank you guys for coming. If you guys want to come out and look at these things, feel free.